Hello, this is Keith Kreischer, Executive Director of the IoT M2M Council, and it is my pleasure to welcome you all to this fourth and final panel of our day, covering the topic of low-power, wide-area network communications. This panel is part of the IoT Infrastructure Conference, a CES partner program, presented by the IMC and sponsored by Digi International, Core, and Software AG. We thank our sponsors for making this online event possible. We'd also like to thank you, our audience, for being here and hope that everyone is staying safe and well in these interesting but sometimes difficult times. You can see the full schedule for today's sessions in the resources section of your interface. For this first panel, we welcome participation from Fred Jens of IoT Launch, Neset Yalcinkaya of Quectel, Gideon Rogovsky of Core, Jim Wirt of Tardabit LLC, and Tom Patton of Microsoft Azure. You can see their full speaker bios at the right-hand side of your slide deck. Before we begin, we wanted to cover a few housekeeping items. At the bottom of your screen are multiple application widgets that you can use. All the widgets are resizable and movable, so feel free to move them around to get the most out of your desktop space. You can expand your slide area and maximize it to full screen by clicking on the arrows in a box at the top right corner of that dashboard. The webcast is being streamed through your computer, so there's no dial-in number for this session. For the best audio quality, please make sure your computer speakers or headset are turned on and the volume is up so you can hear the presenter. If your slides are delayed, pushing F5 on your keyboard will refresh the page. You can find additional answers to some common technical issues located in the Help widget at the bottom of your screen. An on-demand version of this webcast will be available later today and can be accessed using the same audience link sent to you earlier. If you have any questions during the webcast, and we do encourage questions, you can submit them through the Q&A widget. The presenters may answer the questions at the end of the session, but feel free to ask them at any time during the presentations. Any unanswered questions will be responded to offline. Just a quick word about the IMC. We're your hosts today, and we are the world's largest community of qualified enterprise users and product makers that deploy IoT solutions. So whether you're a solutions provider or an adopter, I recommend that you join the IMC and take a leadership role in the IoT sector. You can find us at iotm2mcouncil.org. And now it is my pleasure to introduce the moderator for this panel discussion, Fred Jens, founder of IoT Launch. Fred, good morning, welcome, and take us away.
Well, thank you, Keith. Thank you all in the panel and the audience. It's been a good day. I've listened to many of the sessions earlier and I hope to build on some of those comments that were made and look forward to getting started. One of the things that I think is great about this panel, and I really appreciate everyone's participation, is we were able to assemble really an end-to-end ecosystem of players that could talk about the technology and the solutions that are provided through the low-power, wide-area networking solutions that we're addressing the panel today. From device makers, IoT connectivity, bridging and cloud-based technology up to the large hyperscale clouds like the Microsoft Azure platform. So as we go through this session, we really hope to give a very good point of view from each of the participants and where they fit in the ecosystem, how they cooperate and collaborate with each other, and how we can make it easier for people who are building solutions, whether they be consumer electronic type solutions, certainly the theme of the conference, to B2B solutions or enterprise deployments of low power wide area type technologies. Just a quick thing about me. So IoT Launch, we're really here to help people on this journey. It's as simple as we say, it's experience, ecosystem, and providing some assistance and execution. Been doing IoT and M2M for a very, very long time, and it's just a pleasure to be with you today. The topic, of course, is low power wide area networking. And this is a standard, certainly in the license space, in the LTE space, that was created in about 2017 through release 13 and 14 of the standard. But it always takes a while to develop the technology, roll the technology out, and start to create solutions. And we're at this point of inflection. As we go through 2021, we should start to see more narrowband IoT licenses, or excuse me, devices and low power wide area licensed technology deployed than we see the high category. There's a lot of talk about 5G. Clearly, it is a very, very cool technology, and there's many, many use cases that will come from this. But the baseline set of solutions, I think, coming from many of the IoT devices deployed in the coming years will be based on the lightweight M2M, narrowband IoT, the low power licensed spectrum technologies. And that's really what we want to address today, to give our audience exposure to that space, understand who the players are in that space, and to try to identify some trends a bit earlier as we see this curve start to really ramp up. That's real. Like I said, it was released in 2017. There's devices that are out there. We're starting to get a bit of a global, not a bit, quite a nice global deployment. And there's a few reasons that this was done. And our panels are going to talk about the details a little bit, but lower data costs, increased battery life, try to make solutions more affordable, to live in the environment much longer, reduce truck rolls, et cetera. So this is why I think this is an important space. Our panelists are very keen to start talking about it. And with that, I want to start by introducing them one at a time and letting them give you their perspective and point of view, where they fit in the ecosystem, and how they apply their companies and their time to the lightweight or the low power wide area networking space. Now, with that, I'd like to first turn it off to Nesset, and you've got a couple of slides and some discussion, so I'll pause and let you take this away.
Sure. Thank you so much, Fred, for the introduction, and thanks for everyone for participating. It's an excellent panel to cover LPWA. And it's a very hot topic, right? It's really the IoT, where we want to see connected devices and smart devices actually being part of our daily lives. So my name is Nisa Yalcinkaya. I'm VP of Products, and as well as the head of R&D that we have in Vancouver. Before joining Quectel, I spent over 19 years in Qualcomm in different capacities, starting as an engineer and moving into product management, and then business development, covering different verticals. So I was actually one of the first product managers to introduce Cat-M narrowband IoT chipset based on Qualcomm 9206 at the time. Now, in terms of Quectel, I would be surprised if our audience doesn't know Quectel. But for those who doesn't know, Quectel is basically a module maker. So we're number one. We're number one in what? So we are number one in revenue. For example, fiscal year 2019, we have close to $600 million in revenue. And this is just hardware revenue, just to let the people know. And we've become public in 2019, and our market cap is over $3 billion in the US. It's in Shanghai Stock Exchange. And our growth has been phenomenal. So we've been growing over 50% year over year. And we have shipped over 76 million units. And as you can see the growth, this is going to be really a substantial size by the time we announce the numbers for 2020. We're very big compared to a lot of module makers out there today. We are about 1,800 R&D engineers. So this is just the R&D. So, and then if you look at our portfolio, we have the richest portfolio because we could be able to support so many different segments and so many different SKUs to be able to cater our customers. And our CEO was an engineer, so he completely got into this like R&D and making the best possible solution for our customers. So it's an unparalleled investment in R&D and automation and test setup. And we have the biggest partner of Qualcomm when it comes to IoT space. So if you exclude some of the mobile makers, handset makers, we are the biggest partner for Qualcomm in terms of supporting this segment. So this is just a quick overview of Quectel. So where do we sit in the ecosystem? Basically we are the, if you look at this slide, we are the module maker. As you can imagine, cellular is very, very complex. So it's not really that easy because there's a lot of players in it. There's the infrastructure vendor, there's the standards, there's the compliance, and there's certification. So it makes it difficult. So making a certified module, it's really one of the basics of IoT devices. So we do LPWA modules, CAT-M, narrowband IoT. It's multi-mode or single mode, or even with the 2.2 fallback. There's multiple aspects of depending on what chipset is being used in the module. You could have an MCU embedded in it for people to actually develop applications on it. It has GNSS technology, again, depending on the chipset being used. So it's not one fit for all. So depending on the solution that we provide, it has multiples of aspects, as I mentioned. With all that stuff, it really needs to get onto the network to be able to provide solutions. So we work with MNOs and MDNOs to go and certify it. We do support certain protocols, lightweight M2M, COAP, MQ2T to make the connections, the cloud, easier. And one of the things that we do, we listen to the customers and we make multiple form factors. It could be LTA, LCC, mini PCIe, and that too, depending on what really is required by the network. I mean, that LPWA is a big market, as we all hoped and waited for a hockey stick, and friends show that actual inflection point, and we are seeing a hockey stick beyond 2023. We're very excited for the prospect. And then we are working with the ecosystem partners here, like Tartabit and Microsoft Azure, to make the device actually work. Just the module itself is not going to mean anything without getting the system into the network, including device management, cloud services, and all that connectivity. So bottom line is Quectel is the module maker. We have a big portfolio and supporting different verticals. And our goal is to provide most optimal solution in terms of cost, power, and make it a lot easier to connect to the network. So that would be it from Quectel's side, friends. So I'll hand it over to you.
Very good. Well, Nessa, you must be a very busy guy with over 6,000 customers using your modules and solutions being developed every day. So thank you for that. And certainly we'll get back to the Q&A.
Sure.
So next, once we have a device in the ecosystem and a OEM product or service created, there needs to be a level of connectivity. And with us today is Gideon. Gideon is going to talk about the connectivity layer and some of the services that they provide in that space. Gideon, for you.
Thank you, Fred. How do I move the slide? Yeah. So thank you very much for inviting me to this panel. My name is Gideon Rogovsky. Good afternoon, everybody. I come from Core Wireless, but many years in the IoT world and M2M. Been on the hardware side, modules. I think that Quectel are doing a phenomenal job in the market, and congratulations for that. Fred, this initiative to take, to make narrowband IoT and CAT-M easier to use, I think is a great initiative, and we will talk about it today. So a little bit about Core. Core is one of the largest MVNOs in the world with more than 12 million connections and 6,000 customers worldwide. In fact, we are even one of the biggest carriers globally. If you look at it, we are one of the top 10. We have offices in US, Canada, Europe, Asia, and Australia. We also have a unique office in Brazil. Along with these locations, we have 8 global IoT purpose data centers in 4 different geographical locations, North America, Europe, Australia, and Brazil. This is, of course, to meet data sovereignty laws like GDPR and others. Of course, to solve also latency issues. We have 24/7 support with our 3 global support centers. We use the follow the sun method, so you all know how it works. We support all cellular, and connectivity technologies from 2G, CDMA, 3G, 4G, LTE, and of course, the LPWA such as LTE, Cat M1, and narrowband IoT. We even support LoRa solutions. We have tens of carriers that we partnered with to cover more than 990 countries, 190 countries, and 500 carriers. What do we give to core customers? We help them deploy, manage, scale from the design stage, certifications, into the unique connectivity solution and offering and logistical services. A little bit about our space in the Cat-M and narrowband IoT offering. So as you can see on the map on the right, this is still very, the market is not 100% as it was, with more telecom technology. So you can see some of them are Cat-M, some of them are narrowband IoT, some of them are both. They are being deployed by different carriers. What Course brings to this market is the single source for global coverage. So with one contract, one portal, one integration of APIs, one support center, one invoice, you can resolve and figure out all your global deployment across the world. Our eSIM solution, that is, the next step in the evolution in the connectivity, enables future-proofing. It means, let's say that the network, there is an outage or there are other issues with network changing the deployment. You can switch profiles and revive your devices. Auto provisioning, simplified logistics, right? You can launch a device, ship it from the factory with one SIM card, and then have the right profile based on the location that the device was deployed in. And of course, this all brings to total cost of ownership that is optimized. We're also looking at security. Security of the data is a very serious item, and we have end-to-end security solutions from our 8 global data centers to high-performance BGP routing solutions, multi-carrier, simplified multi-carrier VPNs and APN management solutions. And last one is our award-winning platform called Security Pro. And with this platform, we are actually monitoring all the data traffic, and we can see anomalies. And this is very important when you have tens of thousands of devices deployed. Suddenly, IMEI change, right? Somebody took your SIM card and stuck it into, I don't know, to a tablet, to an iPad. Or if the communication pattern change in a big way, if suddenly devices stop communicating or over-communicating, burst detections, connection and outages. So all of these features are a part of the package that you receive working with a partner like Core. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Gideon. And clearly, it appears that it's the connectivity is a heck of a lot bigger issue than just a cell tower and a signal. There's a lot of management and solutioning that goes on behind that to make that reliable. We'll certainly get back to you on some Q&A. The next person I'd like to introduce is Jim Wirt, founder of Tardabit, and understand kind of how you fit into the ecosystem, Jim.
Thanks, Fred. And, I want to thank everybody for participating in this panel today. It's a great group to be with. So a little bit about myself. So I'm currently the CTO of a new company that we created called Tardabit. Our current offering is focused exclusively on this low-powered wide area networking domain. My history is I can say, I guess I lived the engineer's dream. I went from with a single company being the summer intern while in university, and ended up as the corporate CTO before leaving and moving to start my own business. So it was quite a journey through the lifetime of the evolution of M2M to IoT, and seeing where it's all been. I've developed multiple platforms and delivered many solutions on both the embedded and cloud side. And so to talk a little bit about Tardabit and what we do, we saw a gap in the market, specifically on low-powered networking. Microsoft has, I think, by far the strongest IoT offering among the hypercloud services that are available. And they've done a great job of getting their SDK pervasively embedded in many different devices. But, well, it's great if you have a client there. It doesn't do you any good if it's not suitable for the network technology you're trying to use. And, well, the native Azure connectivity works amazingly well if you're on a device that's plugged into the wall, or a Wi-Fi device, or trying to do some kind of high category LTE, high bandwidth solution. As soon as you drop down and you try to do a low-powered, battery-powered device, something running on Cat-M, something running on narrowband, the technology used in the native Azure IoT offering starts showing some deficiencies. And this is where we built a solution that specifically tried to help bridge these problems. So we work with the industry-leading hardware makers, the network operators, the people on this call, and facilitate a cloud gateway that integrates those devices with the Azure IoT cloud services. We do this using a combination of standards-based protocols like lightweight M2M, as well as support for proprietary protocols running over protocols like CoAP or straight UDP. We do this with a low-code approach. We recognize that the market isn't looking for science projects. The market's looking for ready-to-use service offerings. We do this in a way that's very natively integrated with Microsoft. So we are. I've started telling people we're the unplatform. We are not a device management platform. We don't manage the devices ourselves. We facilitate integrating those devices to the Azure IoT Hub so that you can leverage the entire ecosystem of products and services developed by Microsoft and the other Microsoft partners sitting on top of this common infrastructure. By doing this in this native way, we also then have the flexibility to offer it in many different ways. We have a SaaS offering for the customers who just want to go fast. We have a private cloud offering for customers who want more data security. One thing I'm sure somebody like Gideon can tell you a lot about is the value of private network connectivity in IoT and the values that it can bring. And we recognize that, and we recognize that security is a essential part of all new IoT solutions. So we've made sure that we offer this bridging service in a way that is highly compatible with the different emerging global privacy laws and standards, as well as being able to offer a high degree of security. In doing this in a way that's both developer friendly and business ready. We're again, we see a lot of solutions out there that qualify as a science project or an SDK that requires a lot of heavy lifting to get it into a production ready state. We have an offering that's ready to go out of the box, so to say, to rapidly enable that integration. And I look very forward to the rest of the discussion today. So I turn it over to you, Fred.
Thank you, Jim. So from the device to the connectivity to the ingestion point, then we get into a common logo and brand that we know as Microsoft. And certainly Microsoft has an enormous developer ecosystem, and as a principal product and program manager for IoT Azure, I'd like to let you take and add some comments here, Tom, and let us know kind of how you fit into the top of the system.
Sure, happy to. First, on behalf of Microsoft, want to say we are really thrilled to join the IMC and engage in this community. I think if there's one takeaway from our experience in the last several years of building up our IoT competency and capability and platform, is that it certainly takes an ecosystem. As we see from the players on the call today, cloud platforms, obviously an important part where that digital transformation project is happening, but it doesn't happen in a bubble, and we need our partners in the connectivity space and platform space, hardware partners, et cetera. So really thrilled to join the community here and engage, and thanks to all the panelists as well. So as far as like Microsoft's play in IoT, the Azure platform is the global leader in terms of scale and data center regions globally. And what we see from an IoT perspective is this kind of evolution that I've put down in the bottom, moving from wiring up assets and connecting individual assets towards understanding the place of those assets within their environments and within their ecosystems. So not just sensors in a room, but sensors in a room that understand these sensors are all in the same room and they relate to the door open and closed that's happening at that same room, that relates to the HVAC system that is in the building. How do all these things relate, and how do we build a digital twin of these environments so that we can move from discrete connected assets out there to connected environments and to connected ecosystems? And this topic today of LPWA is super important for that. I mean, lots of times, I would say if we rewind a couple years back in time, as long as the packets are arriving at Azure's front door, we'll take it from there, thank you very much, and be able to deliver a great solution, leveraging everything from our Azure platform, cognitive services, AI and data capabilities, as well as things like Microsoft Teams, Microsoft Dynamics, and the Power Platform, this whole set of tool sets that lets you build that. But what we've discovered is obviously it's not the same when it's coming from, say, a Wi-Fi connection or a wired Ethernet world, or you get down to these tiny devices that are battery constrained, and that it really takes our partner community to bring that to bear, and really happy to be working with others on the panel and in the industry to make that happen. So beyond Azure, which I hope the audience is generally familiar with, global hyperscale platform with all of the data governance and security that you need to operate in any operation, on any operational area in the world, with over 66 regions online today. Within there, we've done a lot of work over the last, say, 5 years or so to take a leadership position in the IoT platform space. And this ranges, and I'm not going to drain the eye chart that you see in front of you, from edge capabilities that we have in our edge runtimes and SDKs, up through our services, like Azure IoT Hub and device provisioning service that ingests data, at scale, up through our IoT solutions and SaaS offerings and application platforms like IoT Central and Dynamics and Power Platform, which are really unique in the hyperscale category. But all of that is really to serve, our core priority industries that you see across the top there. And again, that harkens back to the ecosystem play with our system integrators and others that can help us address that market. So really happy to be presenting in the panel today, and looking forward to the conversation and questions that we can take on together. And again, happy to be joining the IMC.
Well, thank you, Tom. And I hope that our audience now can really appreciate the stack. If you take a look at the architecture and the participants, clearly we've got a lot of talent assembled here. So thank you all for your time. Let's start with some questions. And as we go here, I'd certainly encourage the audience to use the interface to add some questions as well. And the first one that I want to get to is actually starts at the device side, and it'll be addressed to you, Nessa. But as you address your device builder customers, clearly there are architected advantages to the low power wide area licensed technologies that you offer. What do some of your customers see as the biggest advantages? And quite frankly, let's put the other glove on and some of the challenges that they might face in this space.
Very good question. I mean, LPWA, as it stands for low power. So power is very important for these devices, because some of those devices are being deployed in certain places that doesn't require any touch for 20-something years. So people are expected to be very low power. And standards, starting from release 13, put together a couple of power enhancement features like power save mode. Basically, you put the power in deep sleep mode, and extended DRX, because some of those devices not like handset. It's not like you're going to get a page every 1.28 seconds or 2.5 seconds. These are very, very delay tolerant applications. For example, metering applications that you wake up once a day or a couple of times a day, and you send a very little data and you go back to deep sleep, and you don't expect, unless needed, to be actually pinged by the network. So that's why the PSM and extended DRX cycle features as part of release 13 and enhancement going forward are some of the key features that is being put in LPWA for low power. The other aspect of the extremely low cost, because if you're getting a scale that we see in hockey stick, you want these devices to be extremely low cost. The cost starts from the device and then connectivity and then the whole ecosystem, right? So we are doing our part. If you look at the first set of modules that come into the market, it was substantial. So, and I can see in a couple of years, it came down in half even more in terms of module pricing. And if you depending on the capability of the module, it could go down to like a few bucks, right? Where like 2G is actually enabled those devices for a very long time. So NB-IoT type of devices come into those levels right now. We see that. So from device perspective, cost and the power, and as well as the different form factors to be able to fit into different device types is very key. And those are the things that we are driving and are doing our best to drive that. Some of the challenges, of course, right? Just device alone doesn't really address the whole thing. It comes down to connectivity. People want to make sure that since these devices don't use a lot of data, the data cost per usage is extremely efficient. And the other thing is, of course, if you don't have network coverage, you can't really use these devices. Network coverage is very important. Just like any other business, it takes time to scale up and provide this ubiquitous coverage that we have in LTE for a very long time. So those are the challenges that are being addressed, and it's happening. That's why we see a hockey stick that we have showed, that these devices will take over and will pass over the mobile devices or handset devices, and we will see that multi-billion growth. So those are the things that we see from the device side.
Very good. Very good. So the next question actually I have is this could be a combination question. There's a couple that came in over the wire. So Gideon, Nesset mentioned the importance of the network. Clearly, global coverage is important. And we had a question here as well around does Core support NB-IoT global roaming? So it's about the layer of services above the regional operators. So maybe you can expand upon global availability and some of the roaming capabilities and other services that Core provides to make this easier.
Sure, gladly. It is an exciting technology, and as you all said, the growth and the potential of this technology growing is enormous. And I think this is mainly because finally the chipset manufacturer decided to do specific technology for IoT, for supporting devices, and that's how we see the uptake. So the market is getting there. If I will just quickly move to my second slide, sorry, and we can look at the map. So first of all, yes, the first answer is yes, we are there. If you can see in most of the main continents, North America, Brazil, Argentina, Europe, Australia, Asia, you can see that the technologies are there, either narrowband IoT or LTE Cat-M. But it's not as simple as just deploying a module. There are differences in the technologies. There are differences sometimes in the protocol. I think Jim talked about it. Some of it is IP-based, some of it is co-op. There are other solutions, other implementations. That's where Core come into play. So we are here to support customers and help them to figure out what they need according to their global plans. So if somebody comes and say, I need North America only, and my main focus is battery, so we'll say, okay, let's figure out, the narrowband IoT network. If somebody says, I need to be across the world, and my main focus is in Europe, so the answer will be different. So yes, I think the answer is yes, but not yet as simple as this regular cellular-based solutions.
Okay, great. And then you have a global SIM offering that allows this roaming as well on narrowband and Cat-M?
Yes, so we solve that with our eSIM, either with roaming or with different localized profiles that are specifically designed to support different areas. So I cannot, sit here and tell you, hey, everything is resolved. No, even the carrier did not resolve it completely. But we are accumulating more and more components to make it easier and easier. And every month that passes, we have more and more solutions for more and more regions. So it's work in progress, but I think that we are getting there very quickly.
Very good. Very good. Tom, you probably see advantages of a global SIM as you onboard some of your larger enterprise customers.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I would say that there's sort of three categories where that global SIM is super important. And one is we're working with a lot of organizations to make connected products. So if you want to put instrumentation on anything from an engine to a consumer product and be able to understand its behavior, out in the field, manufacturers are looking for a single SKU there. They don't want to have a different warehousing and supply chain for different regions. So a global SIM can really facilitate that in connected products market. Obviously, there's things in transit. So if you've got shipping containers or packages or carts in an airport that are moving around to different locations. Obviously, again, being able to cross borders with that, being able to move into different geographies is important for things that move around. And then global operations, right? Just a lot of our customers have operations in multiple countries, and those countries have different data sovereignty and regulatory requirements, and Azure's well positioned to pick that up. But using a global SIM technology makes it easier for for rolling out those kinds of global solutions. So those are a few areas, aside from just general ease of use, I think, those areas, if you don't have a global SIM strategy, you're in for additional complexity, more complicated invoicing and business relationships. So that's very, very good.
Hey, can you drill in a little bit to your ecosystem and some of your partners, whether they're machine builders, whether they're service providers, system integrators? There's all kinds of folks that leverage your solutions. Why are they looking at lightweight M2M? What are some of the feedbacks that you got from the ecosystem in the market?
Well, I mean, at a high level, it goes back to the key attributes of LPWA, and I would actually kind of apply that both to the licensed and unlicensed space. But there's just a lot of environments. I mean, we started our IoT journey, and probably a lot of our business is inside of factories and inside of facilities. But as I mentioned, we're moving towards this connected ecosystem kind of vision. And the ecosystem's out there in the wild, and out there in the wild means you're not going to be tethered to power cords. You don't want to be going and changing that battery, every 2 weeks, right? And things may be moving around. So in verticals like metering or smart cities, when you're trying to understand whether your rat trap is full or your trash bin needs to be emptied, or if you're tracking assets that are not of high value. So we've had great solutions for high value asset tracking using LTE and other technologies. But what if you're tracking assets that are worth less money? So in all of those areas, we see those projects happening. And just to mention to your ecosystem, yeah, it does take a village, and that's where I think we've been really successful in working with partners, both the kinds of partners that we have on the panel today, as well as the implementation partners and global solution integrators that can help, and the device manufacturers that take those modules and make them into the devices that we actually are using. So certainly, takes a village is the name of the game in IoT, and LPWA really, I mean, it really is opening up new scenarios that you could not just track a cow around a field as effectively as you can now with the emerging lightweight, low power protocols.
Yeah, that's clearly not a 5G use case. Tracking cows.
Yeah.
So So Jim, I think this is an interesting segue to you. So clearly the ecosystem that Tom has is huge. Lots of developers that understand all the Microsoft tools, but the telecom space, the IoT space, the protocol the differences are sometimes potentially challenging. What is Target providing, and really what challenges are you taking away from the developer side? And you had a great question that came in right away that said, in what prevents Microsoft from just doing what Target does? What are the nuances here? Yeah, try to explain a little bit to us.
Yeah, thanks, Fred. So Target really tries to solve this problem by looking at it from a developer's perspective. Yes, there are several SDKs on the market. You can go and pick up a kit. Some of them are open source, some of them are licensed. You can start building it. There's always that debate over whether or not you build it or buy it. But the technical nuances in this space are very fine-grained, and a lot of times you don't see them until you're a couple of years into your deployment, and sometimes it's too late to be able to correct the sins that you have unknowingly committed. And this is where leveraging a company like us, where we have the deep knowledge in the space, we understand the networking, we understand the embedded devices, we understand the enterprise services. We help de-risk a lot of those solutions for customers. And we do this, again, in a way that's focused on low code, ease of integration. We're following the standards. We're making sure that the service is available. The goal at the end of the day is trying to make it a painless experience where we take the specialized IoT knowledge and do the hard stuff ourselves so that you don't have to figure it out. These specifications are getting more and more complicated every day, especially as you look at some of the new emerging technologies in narrowband IoT, like CIoT and the whole NIDD, SCEF, non-IP framework. This really opens up a very powerful set of tools that customers can use to onboard IoT solutions in this low-powered environment. But it takes, again, specialized knowledge, specialized techniques to do this in a way that scales in a cost-effective way, that's secure, that keeps you out of the front page of the headlines, that you're responsible for the latest breach in this space. So when it comes to why Microsoft can't do it, some of it comes down to focus. We are a company that exists in exactly one market. Our only market we serve is the LPWA market. We live it, we breathe it, we die it, we understand everything going on. And that enables us to have a very clear purpose in life to make sure we're offering the best solution possible.
So it sounds like it's a little different than typical topic publishes with MQTTs, things that are a little more, kind of data protocol centric. This is more, there's a blend of kind of telecom centric elements into these new protocols and management of these devices is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, and if you look at, let's dig in a little bit on lightweight M2M. Lightweight M2M is a rather mature standard now. We have the advantage that the major operators have all basically required the module makers to embed lightweight M2M stacks. So, our friends at Quectel have a lightweight M2M stack. Most of the other major module manufacturers also have lightweight M2M stacks available. This enables rapid integration to our solution, and it provides more than just a transport for data. It also provides that device management information, a lot of tuning parameters that make the long-term viability of a cellular-based IoT solution easier to manage. So being able to control aspects, as Nisset mentioned, about the PSM and EDRX settings, being able to control and shape the traffic and the power saving modes. This is this is one of the key advantages of using something like lightweight M2M, where all that management capability is available out of the box.
So okay, so we're going to move on. There's way too many acronyms for some of the audience here, so we're going to be careful. I want to move up stack a little bit and go to you, Tom. What verticals do you see, or any of the participants on the panel, what verticals do you see as potentially the most exciting for some of these low power technologies?
Yeah, maybe I'd start off that. I think that the first place we're seeing a lot of traction is in utilities and metering. That's a natural sort of space for these kinds of solutions. I'd say second, we're looking at a lot of smart buildings, smart cities. So, so I mentioned some of those use cases in smart cities. If you're monitoring waste bins or elements out in the environment, the low power profile is important for that. So a lot of smart cities scenarios we're seeing there. In agriculture, everything from monitoring soil fertility and looking at plants and getting a good and monitoring livestock and other kinds of things in agriculture. We're seeing traction there. And then, I would say generalized asset tracking, just sort of tracking things that are moving around. So like I think I mentioned one of the scenarios we did look at, like where is my machine in this plant? And then the last piece I would just mention is filling out, again, a big area of investment for Microsoft is in our digital twin infrastructure. And so we're working with plants like manufacturers and people who are producing everything from asphalt to industrial equipment, and monitoring both safety and location of items within that environment. And obviously some of those things are delivering intelligence using cameras and high bandwidth wired connections. But for tools that are moving around the workplace, we are trying to find out where those things are or when they were used last. The low power profile helps us map out that digital twin and include more assets within an environment as we try to again move from discrete assets to more understanding the scenarios and environment around those assets.
Great. Nessie, as the product manager in VP of products, you clearly are touching early phase, high volume, important customers.
Right.
Is your view of verticals aligned with kind of Tom's point of view?
Yeah, Tom pretty much covered all the verticals, and if I would add a couple more things, is just telematics, like track and trace telematics, home security, the utilities already covered. It's anything that really requires a low data rate and a long battery life and cost sensitive, pretty much touches as well. And limited mobility, right? Like for example, shared bikes and things like that are becoming very a big vertical that is increasing significantly. And then also going forward, I mean, as Tom mentioned, tracking some of those high asset devices for example, in utility space, for example, you're building a hammer, and you don't want these guys to be stolen. You could put some of those LPWA solutions in there to actually not only track, but actually protect it to be not stolen. Even if it's stolen, just make sure that it's not even working. You could put some solutions around it. So those are the things that actually people are starting to think.
Worksite geofencing, things like that. I mean, I think that's interesting. So anything with a battery is key.
Application services, you could combine, you can create a very creative solution. Right?
One other thing I noticed, just to throw it out there, is we've seen a couple customers integrating LPWA as a back off. So in the home or in an environment where you may normally use a higher bandwidth modality, you might have a Wi-Fi connection, but then if the SSID changes and the customer doesn't change that and you still want to get some degree of information, you can back off of that Wi-Fi connection and utilize an LPWA technology to continue communicating with that device. So that's a little horizontal, but I think it's an interesting thing to think about as you want to maintain connectivity to assets even that may normally use a higher bandwidth mode of communication.
Yeah,
if I can see another vertical of solutions, with smart sensors that are used either in smart cities or in agriculture, smart agriculture solutions. So all the smart sensors, again, are very, very important.
One thing I'll just add here quickly. I think one of the other big changes coming is that this thought of IoT having to necessarily be a subscription is starting to fade away, and people are looking at embedding these IoT devices into their products as a passive element that's included at the point of sale, and it doesn't necessarily include a monthly data subscription like your car might have or something like that. So when you buy now a high-end connected coffee machine or an alarm panel, this connectivity just ends up embedded in it, and that's what really drives this need for lower cost, lower power data consumption to facilitate the long life and controlled costs.
So, Jim, that's a great point. It does give people the ability to change business models, but unfortunately, when you talk about a capital asset or something that might last 10 or 15 years, you also have to probably manage that endpoint. So maybe you and Nessa can each quickly address, if required, the idea of firmware updates and over-the-air management of these assets. What provisions are there?
Yeah, it's a good topic. As you look, I remember when we first entered the IoT space many years ago, people said, "Oh, we never update devices in the field. We just let them die, and then we have some new version that goes out for the next generation." And now between the changing security paradigms, the evolution of network technologies that's outpacing the life of the devices, it's become ever more important to have the intrinsic technology, not only to update the base application firmware, but also the base hardware firmware, but also your application firmware and the ability to grow and evolve your products after you've deployed them. And to answer that part of it, and when people say, well, what do we do that's so special? We have built a lot of technology into our platform to facilitate and simplify the firmware management lifecycle. But we are not a device management or firmware management platform. We integrate into the Azure ecosystem so that you can use all the same Azure tools that you use today to manage and update your low-powered wide area devices.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think I can add a bit more from device perspective. So as you know, none of this software is like bug-free. I mean, in reality, you want to deploy something and you don't want to touch it. That's the goal. But in reality, there is always something. There's a change in network settings, or there's a change in something that will require some firmware updates. So typically, these devices are smaller in memory footprint, but it's not that small. So what we come up with is delta. Basically, instead of like sending the whole image over the OTA, you could create the delta image and send that over. That will take less time and less power. You will be able to get the critical things updated. So that's the one thing that we do on the device side, and creating a delta image. So those are the things that is possible. Even some people thought that NB-IoT is a very low data rate, right? Tens of kilobits per second. If you want to do over-the-air upgrade, it will take really significant amount of time. But because of the delta image, it's very feasible, and you can do multiples of updates to be able to manage the firmware if there are critical issues that you need to address. So.
Well, excellent. So we're running down to about 5 minutes. I wanted to leave everybody with the ability to leave what I'll call a parting thought or a parting shot here. And there are certainly some additional questions. This session has been full of questions, which is great. And we'll reach back to you through email or get back to you from the speaker point of view to the questions that were unanswered during the session. But let's go the other way. Let's start with Tom and end with Nessa in a couple of seconds and kind of parting thoughts before we wrap. Tom, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think, I guess my parting thought is we've been hearing the rumblings of the LPWA hockey stick for a couple of years, and it's kind of start and stop. We're seeing it in the market now. We're believers in the kinds of scenarios that we can enable, out in the environment, utilizing this technology. And we're really glad to partner with folks on this call and I'm sure the broader community to get the right components of technology working together to make it easier for customers and builders and solution integrators to adopt LPWA moving forward. So thanks for the opportunity. And again, looking forward to engaging this community.
Great. Thank you, Tom and Microsoft. Jim, why don't you say a few things about LPWAN on your end?
Yes, I wanted to thank everybody for joining us. And, I see that this is all upside from here. It's been this past year, I've seen a number of solutions come across as everybody's building, but the deployments are, let's say, are not quite there yet. But I see it coming. Every day I hear more stories about new innovative LPWA use cases, both in the licensed space, what we've been talking about today, as well as in the unlicensed space. I spend a lot of time talking in implementing solutions across LoRa, Sigfox. There's a huge wave of nano and microsatellite-based solutions coming on the market. LPWAN is not limited to the LTE and cellular space. This is an area where we see a bright future because we've staked ours on it.
Very good. Gideon, we can't make it happen unless it's connected. Give us your final thoughts. You're on mute, Gideon.
Thank you, Fred. Sorry. Yes, I believe that, to be very honest, IoT was still M2M, I think, until these solutions came. And now we can really explode with solutions because finally the technology is there. And I think the cooperation, the work that we do with the Quectel, the work that we do with TataBit, the work that we do with Microsoft, putting everything together, bringing a solution to the market, I think that this is making it so much easier, makes so much more sense. I believe it's coming.
Yeah.
Great. And Nessa, bring us home. The rubber hits the road right on the module side.
Thank you so much. So as a device maker, we are in the center of this whole thing. We are committed to this space, and we are very excited about the growth and the future along with it. And we're very happy to work with the partners, Quectel, TataBit, and Microsoft to actually integrate these platforms into devices on our modules to make the connection, the whole end-to-end solution a lot easier and scalable and high performing. So we're committed and we are driving the cost down to make it more attractive. Hopefully the hockey stick is coming along and we'll all see that coming into fruition. So.
Well, that's a great ending here. Just to kind of my thoughts as we close up, and I've had the chance to listen to everyone and prepare for this. I think there was a lag, and IoT I think has historically been behind expectations. Certainly in the early stages of IoT, in terms of the number of devices and the types of devices and solutions that are out there. But the idea of digitization, the use of digital twins, the ability for really value delivery to the end user, to the consumer, is there. Thanks to the hyperscale cloud solutions from Microsoft and others. I think that the title of this is Catching the Wave. I think it's undeniable that this build for IoT solution spec in the low power wide area space is truly going to be taking off. And I really, really appreciate everyone who participated in this, who's dialed in. I know we got some folks on from Europe. It's late in your day. On the audience side, Nessa, Gideon, Jim, and Tom, I think you all provide great elements to the stack of technologies and partnering that make this a reality for all of our customers, partners, and users. So with that, I'd like to thank IMC, CES, and the opportunity to do this panel. And I'll turn it back over to you, Keith, to do a final wrap, as this is the end session for a very, very fine day of content that you folks have put together.
Great stuff, Fred. Thanks so much. And a great panel. I learned a lot about low power wide area deployment, and I'm sure the audience did as well. We did get a lot of questions from our audience, and our panel can address those offline, and I'm sure they will. As Fred said, this was our final session of the IMC's IoT Infrastructure Conference at CES. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Digi International, Core, and Software AG. They make this event possible. Also, of course, thanks to all of our panelists and moderators, and most of all to you, our audience. Please join us for our IoT Days winter event. That's coming up next month on the 11th, 16th, and 18th of February. We've got sessions planned on general IoT connectivity, edge compute, and 5G, and that may expand like this event that is free to qualified attendees. And that concludes our program. So thanks, and be safe out there, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you.
Thank you.